Right, so let's get some young entrepreneurs up. A remarkable group of young entrepreneurs are going to be telling us their story, telling us how they are shaping the future of India. So I'm going to start by inviting on stage Vedant Lamba, the founder of Main Street Marketplace, a platform for reselling sneakers, footwear, and other fashion goods from brands across the world. Thanks, Vedant, for joining us. Do come in and join us. Next up, Harsh Agrawal, co-founder of NEERX, a groundbreaking agri-tech startup revolutionizing climate-smart agriculture. Starting NEERX at just the age of 24, he's achieved remarkable milestones by leveraging innovation and digital solutions in agriculture. Our third panelist for this session is Nikita Balar Singh, the founder of Nexus Power, an EV battery startup that uses crop residue to make EV batteries. And finally, we have Mekin Maheshwari, founder and CEO of Udyam Learning Foundation, a non-profit that's enabled the entrepreneurial mindsets for more than 1.6 lakh government schools and ITI students across 8 states in India. It will be 16 lakhs actually. So thank you all so much for being with us. I'm going to go in reverse order, try and understand your journey, and then try and get lessons that everyone who's listening to this can try and copy. So why don't I go in reverse direction? Mekin, I'm going to start with you. Entrepreneurial mindsets. How do you enable them? Is that something you're born with, or can you enable it? And can you enable it in government schools as you've done?
Yeah, so I'm a Marwadi by birth, right? So
so in your case, it's genetic. Now let's move on.
Some of it is genetic, right? But I actually don't think it's as genetic. I think it's the environment that you grow in. It's the sitting at the shop. It's talking money, understanding customers. I think all of that makes a lot of difference. So what we've tried to do in government schools across 12 states now, and those of you who are in Delhi can go and see this in Delhi government schools, is students doing real-world business projects, right? Where they come up with the idea, they go figure out that, oh, what is there a need for? And I can give you some examples of crazy things that students have done. And then they go build stuff and sell it. And that whole process in grade 11, 12, trying to do this, going out of the school, trying to talk to customers, figuring out ye kaise banega, and then making it happen, going selling. That whole experience is what makes you entrepreneurial, right? So we believe in 3 core principles of learning by doing, in the real world, with your choice, with agency. In my opinion, and enough psychology research, like, hey, this stuff can make you entrepreneurial. Students have gone on to do things like a machine for detecting snakes in AP, right? That on a farmland, in the night, walking out is dangerous without this. In Delhi, there are kids who've built a shop theft alarm system, which will call you if somebody tries to break into your shop. And they've sold like hotcakes. So these are kids who solve local problems around them, and they're fearless.
So one specific point that strikes me is the fact that you're doing this in government schools. Government schools have not always been known for innovation or the ability to do something very differently, or for the entrepreneurial spirit. At least that's the reputation they've had, perhaps unfairly. You're saying that government schools is where it's not that tough to do. You're doing it in Delhi.
So I'm a big believer of human potential, right? I think like the ovarian lottery that decided where each of us are born need not decide where each of us go, right? And just because these kids were born into places that did not give them the access and privileges that most of us got, shouldn't deny things. So that's where I start out. But here is evidence. Well, these are kids who've actually done this. And I think our academic system is a selection funnel. And on that, the government schools do fairly poorly, except for Kendra Vidyalayas and some of the Delhi schools, etc. But the areas I'm working on, government school kids are actually far more street smarter than my kids or your kids, who will struggle to do things in a market in Chandni Chowk on their own. Government school kids can go and figure this out because they do this all day.
Right, Nikita, let me just move to you because, EV battery startup that uses crop residue. Now, I live in Delhi, right? I live in the National Capital Region. I just read 2 days ago that crop residue or its resultant air pollution, which comes by people burning crop residue, is knocking 12 years off my life, so which is not that pleasant to read. So if you're going to be using it to make EV batteries, I think all of us are really interested. How are you doing it?
You know, interestingly, the idea began with this news that popped up back in December 2019, early 2020, that the AQI around Delhi NCR is terribly bad. And it's because people are burning crops once their harvest is complete. So we were at that point of time wanting to have batteries made out of alternate materials, which is not actually lithium. And then this news cropped in and we were like, if we can pick up that crop waste and make batteries out of it, I think we'll be able to solve two different problems at the same time. Fortunately, things worked for us the way we had envisioned them, the way we planned it. And that's how the entire circle for Nexus got complete. That we make the batteries out of crop residue. I would not leak out the entire technology. It's patented, of course. And it's under trials, so we are not really officially authorized to talk about it. But what we do is we use the crop residue as a structural raw material, and then we extract elements out of it. And what the concept we follow is called biomimicry. It's like mimicking how a human body or a plant would transfer their energy, store their energy, into artificial batteries. That's the basic idea behind it.
So, I mean, okay, don't tell us the secret technology, but I'm curious about this because we've always been told you can only make EV batteries by using lithium and stuff like that. You're saying it can be done through crop residue?
There's plenty of research. It's not just crop residue. In fact, I'm sure people are aware, there's research on graphene, there's research on aluminium. All of it is away from lithium completely. So it's not that we are talking about some rocket science. People are doing it on their daily course of life, and that's how we are trying to do it as well.
All right, Harsh, what is climate smart agriculture?
Yeah. So basically what has happened in the last 10 years is, climate has been shifting, but the practices haven't been shifting at that faster pace. So let's say if you start sowing the crop in maybe June or July, according to a calendar year, it wouldn't suit according to the climate that is changing. So let's say if the rain starts in July, you are planting it maybe in July or August based on a calendar plan. And accordingly, you have to manage the logistics as well. You have to understand where the seeds are coming from, where the pesticides are coming from. So that has changed a lot in past 10, 15 years specifically. The temperature has been rising gradually. And all in all, you need an advanced plan, but a real-time plan. So climate smart agriculture basically enables that. We provide on-ground data based on the crop that you have in place. And our algorithms basically adjust or take in account all of the parameters from climate, crop, even farm practices. Because, in previous sessions, we are talking about a lot of resilience coming in from customers. So I think farmers are somewhere on the India 3 stack where, it's a lot more difficult to monetize or even convince them of something or bring them to a new practice. But that is what we have been trying to do with climate smart agriculture, and government or even the partners such as AWS have had a great role to play in this specific agri stack that we are trying to build.
All right, Vedant, yours it's slightly different, right? You're not necessarily trying to solve for air pollution, but it's a radical new business which is really taking off.
Yeah, I think I'm building the least noble of all things here. But that being said, I think India in general as a landscape is, and I think human beings in general sort of slowly discover that we live our daily lives doing rational things all in the pursuit of doing irrational things, where, and I think we're trying to solve for things like that eventually just, that help people in...
So what are the irrational things that you're doing, right? You're getting people to resell footwear and brands. That's what you're getting them to do in the marketplace.
I mean, very simply
it's not that irrational.
Very, very simply put, we sell expensive things to rich people. And I'm going to be very honest, most of the things that we sell, they're not worth the money. There's no real, and everybody knows, we're not lying. I'm not going to tell you that you jump higher.
I hate to break it to you, but this is going out on YouTube. Are you sure you want to say that?
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of it. We don't really have to sell it.
The people are buying it know that it's not worth what they're paying for it.
They ask for it. Our job
because it's irrational, because they're paying too much money and it's not worth it, they'll buy it more.
Because their friends are buying it, and their friends won't stop buying it. It's interesting, right? Because I mean, we never really solved a complex problem. It was a simple problem. It was there was a lot of demand for these limited edition products from around the world, and there was a good amount of it floating around in the market. And so all we really had to do was show up, and then people would buy it. You know, and when we figured that out, it simplified things for us. It's not easy, but
You started with a
simple.
YouTube channel and then moved into a marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, when I learned about like the world of sneakers, I was like, this is an interesting space. I grew up not really. My parents are very sensible folks, so you know, I was never really. It was never a lot of privilege, but there was not a lot of like splurging. So I never really understood it, but I wanted to figure it out. And when I learned about this world of like sneakers and resale, and I felt like I was going down a rabbit hole. And when I looked up, I was like, well, there's none of it here. There must be a business to build here. And then I was like, we should start a sneaker store. And then it was like, oh, you need money to start a store. And I was like, oh, we don't have any money. So it's like, okay, we'll start with the YouTube channel. And that eventually became the store and so on and so forth. And today we sort of have a very solidified vision on building a marketplace for status symbols to sort of facilitate, you know, the social being of human behavior.
I think a lot of parents can resonate with that, kids trying to get them to buy sneakers, although I'm glad you're not wearing sneakers. So
Yeah, I gotta, well, otherwise, otherwise there will be mayhem.
there would be mayhem out there.
No, I
All right.
think it's just not the kids, it's also the parents who are buying it these days.
They're the ones with all the money.
It's,
The parents are the ones who have to buy this.
yeah,
right?
it's,
So
it's kind
you
of
know whom to
for
target
everybody.
this to. the
We
parents.
sell to everybody. We don't mind. Everybody, you got money, we take it. Everybody rich. Yeah.
Whoever has
you got
money, buy
we
it.
take it, man. It's all good.
Okay,
Don't
so now that we've figured out what each of you is doing, let's try and derive some general lessons, if we can, from all of you. I'm going to start off with entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship at a young age. And Nikita, I'm going to start with you because I think you started when? Were you in school or just out of college?
We see, Mekin had just mentioned that it depends on the exposure. And I belong to a business family. So I've seen my father, my mother having their own companies, employees around, their operations all my life. So for me, that is what life is, you know. You study, then you grow up and you make your own company. That is how it was for me. I haven't really seen the service sector as such as a child because technically nobody, even in my extended family, is into a job like a lifestyle. So that is what it was for me. And for me and my co-founder, we're twin sisters. So for us, that was life. You finish your studies, then you start your own company. And we were very sure, I think, since the age of 10 or 11, that we wanted to be entrepreneurs. And we wanted to be entrepreneurs on the sustainable point of view, from the environment point of view. So that's how I think we just got done with our 12 boards and we said, let's go ahead. What I did realize in this journey is that when you start young, you have absolute freedom and the energy to experiment with multiple genres. So, you know, you have this time to work upon what you really want to do. And you also have the liberty to spend maybe a year and a half or two in understanding what could make money and what should be kept like a backstep idea for later. And fortunately, we had that time because we started freshly out of school. So we did our college courses, and during that journey, we kept gaining the insights of how business works and, you know, how it is beyond just going into a room and sitting on the chair. It's so much more that you have to see. So we landed time for ourselves because we started very young. And secondly, even today, I do not have liabilities on my head as an individual. I don't have to take care of a family. I don't have to take care of, you know, food that goes on my plate because I still have my parents taking care of it so far. And that, I believe, helps young entrepreneurs. It lessens the burden. You are not really stressed about earning the moment you step in because you know that your basic needs, roti, kapda, makan, is being taken care of. So you can go ahead and experiment.
Harsh, you also started off at what, 24, right? That's also really young. Was it scary to do an entrepreneurial journey at that young, or is that the way which a lot of people, at the age at which a lot of people are doing it now?
No, it's definitely scary when you start. It's really very scary. But, you know, over a period of time, you realize, you know, and it's an important realization that nothing is too big or nothing is too small. So at some point, some things seem, you know, these are small things to do. In some cases, you know, being an engineer, when we start, we say, yeah, selling is not, you know, not the part of the job. Matlab, it seems too small of a job to, you know, do. But I think it contributes almost 80% of the job now. So in that way, a realization comes maybe a year or maybe 2 years after once you start. And at that point, you start realizing, certain things go in your way, and certain things, would definitely block your way. But you need to climb those and move ahead.
Yeah. Just coming to you on that aspect of encouraging young people to take the entrepreneurial leap. Now, we've all been talking about Startup India, and India is a country of startups, and a young must go and start up and the rest of it. And it's fine if you have some of the safety nets and cushions. I'm just playing devil's advocate out here. But for a lot of people, is it still the situation their parents are looking at them and saying, look, this is all very well, but you need capital for this, you need staying power for this. Maybe you should think about getting a job. We heard the minister earlier in the day saying there was to be a time, about 25 years ago, everyone said get a government job. Now, they're not saying that, but there must be a lot of parents who are still saying, are you sure you want to be an entrepreneur, or shouldn't you get a stable job first?
Okay, I'll start with data. Between 2014 and 2022, about 22 crore young people applied for government jobs. 7 lakh got them, right? So 21.93 crore young people, on an average, prepared for 3 years, 3 months, in the hope for a government job. So for most of India, right, government jobs remain the number one aspiration. I think.
And is that because of the safety of it? The safety, the security?
I think it's a bunch of things, but the first and foremost, my read of people, and especially kids in government schools, is it's prestige, right? It's respect, right? Like, who do you want to be? I want to be the collector, because everybody stands up when the collector walks in. So I think the idea of respect and prestige, especially in a society where that's not easily available, depending on your caste, class, gender. And now I am talking about India that's beyond the cities and beyond the English-speaking class. There, this matters a hell lot. So that's an important piece. So let's not make the leap that, hey, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur just yet. A large number of people, the 21.93 crore who do not get a government job, right, realize that, hey, there aren't really too many opportunities, and you are on your own. Now, you can be a construction worker and a daily wage earner. You can work in farms, or you can try and figure things out and do something of your own. A farmer is an entrepreneur, right? Or should be an entrepreneur. We've just not seen them or set them up to be an entrepreneur. A craftsperson is an entrepreneur, right? And it's just that the entrepreneurial spirit of what does it take for a farmer to employ technology, better finance, more marketing, more processing, to be able to create more value, are not things that we have done. So as a country, our focus on productivity and growth has been fairly poor. And I think that, like, how can a farmer do 3x the produce, right? How can a craftsperson do a lot more? And I think that's where I feel young people can actually play a massive role. And I see them doing it in the projects that they do, that they are able to create technical advances around areas that they see, which makes things a lot more productive.
Right. Vedant, to the people you're marketing to and you're selling to, and certainly in what you sometimes call the urban English-speaking, sort of sections, where's the prestige and the status of working? It's not the government jobs there then. Is it working in consultancies, or increasingly is it becoming entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of enamel around the world of like entrepreneurship today. Everybody wants to sort of put that title, in their Instagram bio or whatever. It becomes fairly shallow also after a point. And I think people often lose sight of, building something real just to be able to look a certain way. But I mean, that's okay. I mean, once you actually start doing something, you just get punched in the face so much, eventually you figure out how hard it is, and it loses all of that enamel pretty quickly.
Do you get punched in the face a lot, and is it hard?
My face is literally swollen right now. It's because I had an extraction, not because I got punched. But yeah, it's every day. You wake up in the morning and like you're expecting it. You'll open your laptop, just like, what went wrong? And you're just sitting there and like, I'm ready. If something didn't go wrong, like it's Sunday, like people are just off. But that
so
resilience.
Entrepreneurship, you're saying, is harder than it looks.
Oh, it's so hard. And I think, I mean, a lot of us, I mean, you start early, and especially if you have the privilege of a home and family, and like so many people in the country don't. So I can't even imagine how much harder it is for them. But it took me some time to look back and be like, Jesus, like today there's 45 people who if I mess something up, there's 45 families to feed. And I'm very lucky I can go home, but what about these guys? There's customers. We had one rough month when we grew 3x of our normal business and we scaled, but then our supply chain broke. And now there's 1,500 kids who have ordered shoes for 30,000 rupees who haven't got them, who are really angry for not getting them. That's a scary mob, young, wealthy kids, terrifying. So, it's definitely not easy. It's heavy. It's heavy weight. It's a lot of weight.
Instagram also.
All of them have access to social media. Their parents, somehow every single person's parent is super connected. Everybody knows the prime minister somehow. It's like all of you can't know him. I'm sure someone is lying.
I'm reasonably certain that the prime minister is not
He's
going to
not bothered about
in
sneakers.
somebody getting a 30,000.
But then you can't say that to a customer. I
I'm
really
guessing
want to.
Next time someone tells that, you reply. I'm saying I'm
I
sure
really
he's got
want to.
other
I'm
things
like,
to
I
worry
don't think he'll care, but sure, tell him that your shoes are 4 days late.
But this is so But this is so heartening to hear, right? I think I don't hear enough young people talk about the challenges of entrepreneurship. I feel like and despite me trying to teach entrepreneurship in government schools across the country, 12 states, 2 million kids, entrepreneurship is hard, right? I feel we've made it super sexy and super cool, but as a result, I know of people who had the founder CEO title but had no substance, and beyond a point, they could not face their family, right? And that failure is very hard for us to मतलब founder के बाद promotion क्या होता है?
No, but I think the key is to really get comfortable with failure, right? If
Exactly.
You can be okay with that.
But people say that, and that's something which people say they get comfortable with failure, but I don't think enough entrepreneurs or people wanting to get into the space realize how much hard work it is. Would you agree with that, Nikita?
Absolutely.
Hard
Absolutely,
to
because
disagree.
there are plenty of times when we go ahead and interact with students. It happens that your school calls you back as an alumni to talk. And when you listen to people in the hall, they have absolutely no idea how hard it gets to actually go ahead and step into that world of entrepreneurship. So actually, the audience is mostly divided into two sides, I would say. One who is aspirational, but isn't willing to go ahead and do it because of multiple reasons, whether family support or finances or whatever they have in their mind. The other who is super excited but doesn't know what to do exactly. So you just step in and they say, I want to be an entrepreneur, but what do you really want to do? They don't have a clue. So the thing with, I believe, entrepreneurship and specifically young generation is that it is slowly turning into a status symbol, which is not what it is supposed to be looking like.
And I mean, I was just seeing it on X the other day. Somebody says 30 tips when you want to be an entrepreneur. Don't start a company, don't start a company, don't start a company because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, if you're able to pull it off, then obviously the rewards are also very high. But one of the things I want all of you to weigh into is young people and even not so young people getting into it, sometimes there seems to be a sense that they believe that all you need is a good idea. I have a good idea, it means I'm a successful entrepreneur, my business is fine, and I'm now a unicorn, I'm going to make $1 billion because I have a good idea. Having that good idea is probably, what, 0.00001% of the entire game? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So on idea level, I think that is the worst level to be. So initially, it may seem it's an idea problem, but it's not. 99.99% is about, from idea you move to a product. From product, you move to a people's problem. Then from people's problem, you move to a growth problem or maybe a scaling challenge. So idea is...
So you just take us that through again. That's a really good way of putting it. So take us through each of those stages in a bit more detail, and I'll get everyone else to weigh in on that.
So, in the current environment, idea is worth nothing. It's merely peanuts. You go and even pitching to a VC and you are saying that I have this idea in mind. He would love to see the execution, not the idea. So from idea, the next step is you do a market test or you do a prototype in hardware or in both software or anywhere. Even if you are reselling sneakers, I think the good way to start is, let's say he started a YouTube channel just to understand, how the market would perceive it. So then from idea, you move to a product problem. How will you distribute it? How will you market it? And what is the acceptance? So at certain percentages where you are confident that, the percentage is, the market is reflecting on the product, would create a good value at a people's problem. Then you start hiring a lot of people. Based on your common goal, based on your common aspiration, then it becomes a people's problem. And then once you have a lot of team in place, then comes or kicks in the responsibility, like you were saying. I have a 45-member team or 100-member team. I have to feed all of them. Now comes the responsibility part. I have to scale it in such a way that, in any X day, I am able to feed them. And they are also with me because they also want to grow. So internal growth versus external growth becomes a challenge at that point of time. We still are at a very starting stage maybe. I couldn't comment much more on that. Mekin would be able to add something on this.
Talk to us about that journey, where the biggest hurdles essentially are, the biggest challenges are.
Yeah, I think ideas are a dime a dozen. For those of you who are interested, Paul Graham wrote this back in like 2001, right? That, hey, ideas are worth nothing, execution's everything. And it's been out there. I feel even the idea of being centered around an idea, I feel is broken, right? It has to start with a customer. Like, I go to a lot of engineering college. Okay, I used to be a techie in my past life, ran tech for Flipkart. I would go as a jury to a lot of engineering colleges for hackathons and startup competitions. And my first question to most of the engineers, and sorry, I'm an engineer, but would be that, hey, how many customers have you spoken to before you start building this? It's like 0, right? Because I know this will work. And I'm like, that's the problem, right? That unless you start with a customer, start with a set of people who you are going to serve, and you pay attention to them and you understand. And building a business is about serving customers. If you cannot serve customers well, there will be no business. So that, in my opinion, is like the basic starting issue. After that, I think the stages that you've laid out are actually reasonably accurate. Depending on whether it's a product business or a services business, you can go much faster.
Between the customer and the idea is whether sometimes you need the technology, you need the help, you need the know-how of how to do it. Is that where there's a fair amount of support now from CSIR labs and other labs that are coming in to do it?
See, challenges are different in different stages and also for different people. I would emphasize for different genders also, because women in technology gets very, very difficult. The first thing you have to do is convince people that you know what you're talking about, and that's not just hard as a person, but emotionally draining as well. But as far as support is concerned, there are plenty of CSIR labs and research organizations who step forward. And what they solve is a basic problem of having too much finances to actually buy the machines and equipment. So the CSIR labs have the machines, but not many people to use them. If you have a product, you can tie up with them, and you can go ahead and use their machines and equipments, and then you can build your product. That's the kind of support that the government gives. Must be different for every state, maybe the country as a whole. But we have come across plenty of these labs throughout our journey, and we still look forward to collaborating with more. And I'm sure these kind of support for particularly deep tech startups and people who are interested into research and development, it's a proper boon. You don't need much of money. You just have to sign an MOU and you can do your research without actually physically owning those equipment, which is brilliant.
The next step, of course, is when you are going out and you're selling and you're marketing. And here's where the challenges, I guess, will be very different, urban to rural. How you're selling in urban India, very different to how you're selling in rural India. Which part of India are you selling to? Are you selling to India 1 or India 1A? Very different to if you're selling to India 2 or India 3, which don't have that purchasing power.
So it's very important to understand, so digital penetration is always there. For the past 4, 5 years, 6 years, it has almost 10x maybe in the India 3 area. In India 1, India 2, would have been maybe 2x, 3x. So it has increased a lot more in the India 3 area, but we need to talk about the monetizability of that. How would you eventually monetize them, or how do you even sell to them? So one thing we have understood is they want to feel the presence of the product. They want something which is tangible. Even in terms of delivery or maybe logistics, when we talk about this logistics, to create a trust, maybe a simple purchase slip is something which makes a lot of difference to them. Not maybe in India 1, India 2, you would be happy with a e-bill, but they won't be. They would be looking forward to something which is tangible. So when we introduce a technology onto the farms, we do have physical sensors that need to go onto the ground. They don't just trust the crop level or crop model data. We have to put in some infrastructure of sort to actually build that trust. And that trust factor, because they do have a limited amount of money that they would be willing to spend, and they fall at the very base level of the Maslow's hierarchy, where they are still fulfilling their needs, they are still feeding their stomachs. So it's a complex market to be in, and it's combination of both physical and digital world, and if you have the right intermix of it, it works really well.
Slightly different challenges, I guess. Is it easier if you're selling to India 1A?
I mean, it comes with its own set of challenges. I don't think selling anything is really easy. It's the hardest thing, and it's an important thing to pick up on. But I'm sure, we are blessed with a lot of privileges in terms of consumer understanding, and they come educated with the product. But, everything, has its own. I realize, when we're talking about the ideas, and I've seen that this is basically from where news spreads in India, right? It spreads on WhatsApp messages. So everybody's looking for an idea that will fit in a WhatsApp message. It's like, they just did this, and they just made a website to do this, and everybody's looking for the easy thing to do. But, I think real value will only come from doing the larger, harder, complex things. And I think that's something you only discover once you start trying to build on that. And once you start selling also, you start selling to India 1, you think, oh, these guys know they want what shoes they want. It'll be really simple. But then you see that, some Haryanvi dude will come back saying his shoes are stained, and now that means they're fake. And if you don't refund them, he'll I don't know, call the Prime Minister. And then, you'll be creating a scene. And there's different sets of challenges. I don't think either are better or worse. I'm sure you guys have a lot harder things to deal with. But it's tough for us here and there. We figure it out.
All right, I'm afraid we are flat out of time. Please put your hands together for them. They're doing really exciting range of activities. Thank you so much for being with us.